Once you've identified your topic, broken it down into its concepts, and identified which database you'll use for your search, it's time for step 4, gathering up your search terms. This is when we describe the concepts we broke our topic down into. So for each concept, what are the ways that authors of journal articles might discuss them? So for example, my topic again here, do mindfulness-based interventions reduce rates of burnout and compassion fatigue among healthcare professionals? Well, the mindfulness-based interventions concept might be described as mindfulness-based intervention or interventions, MBIs, mindfulness practice or practices, mindfulness intervention or interventions, mindfulness meditation or meditations, mindfulness programs, mindfulness-based stress reduction or MBSR. Now, since pretty much all of the ways of talking about mindfulness-based interventions include the word mindfulness, and since I'm not particularly interested in meditation styles that aren't mindfulness-based, I might decide to just use the term mindfulness to search for this concept, and then I could maybe combine it with MBI and MBSR. If I end up with too many articles that are about mindfulness but not about mindfulness-based interventions, I'll adjust my search strategy. Searching is an iterative process, but it's important to begin with an intentional strategy. That's why we're thinking about our search terms now, even though we know we might adjust them as we go later on. Now for the concepts of burnout and compassion fatigue. How might an author refer to these? So as burnout and compassion fatigue, obviously, or maybe as work-related stress or moral distress, emotional exhaustion, burnout spelled as 2 words or with a hyphen in between, low compassion satisfaction, also called CS, secondary traumatic stress, STS, occupational stress, occupational satisfaction, job satisfaction, personal satisfaction, decreased empathetic ability, resiliency. Now, some of these are synonyms for the concept burnout or the concept compassion fatigue, but some are actually related concepts, like occupational satisfaction, for instance. Attrition, turnover, retention, these are all additional related concepts, but not exactly synonyms for the specific concepts burnout and compassion fatigue. So once I'm done brainstorming possible descriptors for my concepts, I need to hone in a bit on which words or phrases I thought of that really do describe the concepts I specifically want to find articles about. Finally, there's my healthcare providers concept. So healthcare providers might also be expressed as HCPs, clinicians, healthcare professionals, nurses, doctors, physicians, practitioners. So I did some brainstorming of how my concepts might be expressed, and now I've done some reflecting on which of those terms I think really capture the concepts that I'm interested in. And here are the specific terms I'm thinking of using for searching. Notice I've added in nurses and physicians as 2 specific types of healthcare providers. I could certainly expand that list or even exclude nurses and physicians. I may kind of see how searching goes later in determining which all of these I end up using for my search, but this is a good starting place. So one other step though in deciding on search terms. In some databases there is a list of standardized terms that an indexer, that's a person who reads the article and decides what it's about, can use to describe the content of articles. One example of a standardized term set like this is MESH, medical subject headings, and that's what's used for Medline indexed articles, which is the majority of the articles you find when searching in PubMed. Here's an example of a citation in PubMed. When viewing the abstract, if I scroll down, you can see the MESH terms that an indexer assigned to this article. Notice that the author called the illness esophageal cancer, but an indexer has applied the MESH term esophageal neoplasms to the article. Because of indexing like that, if I search PubMed for esophageal neoplasms, the MESH term, then I'll retrieve all these results, even though the author of each article has used a different term and/or different spellings to describe the concept of esophageal cancer. So searching with indexing terms can be really useful. To use these indexing terms when searching, you have to find them first, and different databases have different standardized terms list. In PubMed, the list is called MESH, as we just saw, and to find MESH terms, you use the MESH database that's available on the front page of PubMed. In CINAHL, the standardized terms list is called CINAHL subject headings, and you can search for CINAHL subject headings by clicking on that link at the top of the page. Other EBSCO databases have their term list available in a similar location, though they'll be called something different. In ProQuest databases, the standardized terms list is found using the thesaurus available to access from the advanced search page. And then some databases like Web of Science and Google Scholar don't have standardized terms list, so you just have to search by text words. That's words that are in the title or abstract of the article. The words we previously decided on for our search are text words. So I went and searched for my concepts in the Mesh browser, in CINAHL subject headings, and in the APA thesaurus of psychological index terms, since I plan on searching in PubMed, CINAHL, and PsycInfo. And here are the specific indexing terms for my concepts in each database. Quick note here, each time you see a plus sign, that's because these standardized terms lists are all hierarchical, and sometimes you'll want to do something called exploding when it comes to the indexing terms that you use. So here's what I mean in Mesh. When you're looking at a term in the Mesh database, you can scroll down and see where it is in the hierarchy. In the case of health personnel, I want to find articles that may have that indexing term on them, and articles that have any of the narrower terms underneath health personnel. But I don't need to search using all these different Mesh terms. I'm just going to use the term health personnel, and then PubMed will automatically also search for all the Mesh terms below it unless I tell it otherwise. Now, the PsycInfo and CINAHL databases do not automatically also search for narrower terms under the heading, so we have to click on the Explode checkboxes from the standardized terms list in those databases to get them to look for the broader term of health personnel, or in this case occupational stress, and for any of the terms underneath them, the narrower terms. We'll see more about this when we go over searching in those two particular databases though.